First of all, say good evening. Thank you all for coming this evening to this event. Very grateful for that. We are having many meetings as part of this review, but what we felt was it was important to have one public meeting where anyone could come to the meeting, whether you're a resident in Birmingham, or you live here, or whether you work here. So this is an opportunity for people who live or work in Birmingham to get their views across to us as part of the review. And I have two colleagues with me who are helping me this evening who are on the panel. Joanne Rowley, who is the Chief Executive of Wakefield Council, but in fact was both born in Birmingham and indeed started her career in Birmingham as well. So she knows the city very well. And the second person here is Howard Sykes, who's a former leader of Oldham Council. So again, very experienced in local government. Just to say, this review was announced in July by the Secretary of State for Communities and Local Government, Eric Pickles, and Sir Albert Bohr. So it's a jointly agreed review by central government and by the City Council. But it is an independent review that I'm leading personally with a panel, as I say, that are supporting me. The reason why the review was established, or why it was prompted, was the Trojan horse issues that emerged. But it's not about Trojan horse, and I should emphasise that this evening. It is about how Birmingham as a city is run, what the issues are for the city, and what the issues are for the City Council. So it's about, if you like, the city in the round, and about the council as well. What's good, but also what needs improvement. And the outcome of the review will be a report that I publish in December that sets out exactly that. What are the strengths of Birmingham and what does it need to do differently? And that's why we've got this review underway. Now, the way we plan to run this evening is to break it into three parts. Joanne will lead on, if you like, the city, what you see as the strengths of the city, but also the issues for the city as well, the big issues for Birmingham as a city. Howard will talk about the communities in Birmingham and hear your views on the communities in Birmingham, what the issues are for them. And then finally I will come back and take your views on Birmingham City Council's services and how they work. So we'll do it in those three parts, but it's not fixed, and we're keen to get your questions and particularly your comments really on any issue that you have this evening. Just a few kind of points of housekeeping for this evening. First of all, to say that we've had quite a lot of interest in the event this evening. In fact, we were oversubscribed in the numbers for the event. So what we have done is arrange for the event to be filmed this evening, and so we can put it on our site. We would have liked to have live streamed it, but unfortunately that facility wasn't available in the library, so we couldn't do that. But we will ensure that the public can see this event if they want to. I should also say that if you have any points that you wanted to raise with the team confidentially, then we're happy to pick those up at the end of the meeting. So if you're not comfortable making certain points in what is a public meeting, there is a chance for you to make them at the end of the meeting. So that's the first point. Second point to say is that we're clearly not here as the council, and so we're not able per se to deal with individual issues this evening. We will pick those up though and make sure the council is made aware of them. But tonight is very much about the city and the council as a whole. You may want to illustrate your point with your own personal experiences, but we won't be able tonight to actually deal with specific issues and complaints. And then finally, I should say that we aim to finish at 7:30. And again, if there are points people didn't get the chance to make, we're very happy to pick those up at the end, or indeed there's an opportunity if you want to write to us and to give us your views at some point. We've circulated the email address. So the chance to follow up, if there's a point you really wanted to make that we weren't able to do justice to this evening, then feel free to email us as part of the review. So I think that's the introductions out of the way. Thank you again for coming. And I'll hand over to Joanne to lead the discussion on Birmingham, the city, its strengths and its issues. Joanne.
Yes, thanks, Bob. Good evening, everybody. It's so great to be in a room full of Brummies. I miss that lovely accent. Please speak to me lots, so I'm going to need my fix. As Bob said, I'm born and bred in Birmingham. I come from Shard End. I'm very proud of being a Brummie, very proud to be back in the city and part of this review. I left about 16 years ago to go to Yorkshire, but don't hold that against me, okay? I'm a Brummie at heart. And the part of this session really is to talk about this great city and to hear your views about what you think are the big issues in this city. What do you see as the challenges here? What's your opinion on some of the things that have happened to transform the city? In the time I've been gone, I can see quite a lot happening. But really, I kind of want to throw it open to you to say, what do you think the big issues are? Successes or challenges? So who wants to kick off? Because we're going to get to know each other by the end of tonight. So who wants to kick off?
This is quite a minor one.
That's okay.
But it causes annoyance to residents, the garden waste tax. You have to pay money to the council to come collect your garden waste. And they put these signs, they don't collect, but these signs in which are quite patronising, like sorry, exclamation mark, in the deluded belief that people will go and throw them away themselves. So what you've got is roads that literally stink of rotting leaves and waste.
Right.
And
okay.
me and Rachel McLean, just parliamentary candidate for Northfield constituency, we've, with a team of people, we've gone and got rid of them. But I don't really think that's our job. We're doing that voluntarily. Really, if you pay your council tax, you know, Birmingham City Council should collect garden waste.
Okay, that's a comment. Refuse collection, garden waste in particular is a concern. I'm seeing a few nods around the table, around the room, around the table.
Yeah, there is a problem with that because they make you pay £35 for a wheelie bin, which I have. But the other people they take their garden waste down to the local recycling centre, and some of them are industrial estates, and at the weekends people can't actually get into the businesses because of the huge queues there, and there's times when they have to the skip full of garden waste balls, so then they have to put it into the standard waste, and also people just kind of leave black bin bags out with garden waste, which are then refused to be picked up, and then they are picked up, and then they're just put into the household waste, and it just seems to be like a symptom of Birmingham being so centrally controlled that there isn't anybody who's really like accountable for it, whereas you would think that communities should be able to actually organise their own waste control and make more logical decisions, and then if they need be, they could work together with other parts of other communities to get the economies of scale going.
Okay, thanks. Got that point. There's a comment at the back, yeah?
I'm a voluntary chair of Bramwell Forum. I'd like to know why District Council, our local District Council, which operates 4 different wards, how many managers are now left when you could probably employ 6 people to 1 manager's post?
So this is the district committee arrangements?
No, this is the district committee. So it's you've got 12 wards, haven't you?
Yeah.
And you've got a district manager who earns probably 6 or 7 people's wages. Those 6 or 7 people have now been made redundant. Birmingham City Council is running with far fewer people. They seem to be managers who haven't actually been on the street for many years.
Okay, obviously I
so
can't.
It's an operational question.
I can't answer the question for you, I'm afraid, but I take the point.
How many people it takes to, clean a street? How many managers does it take to?
So I take the point about where the savings are coming from and what the impact is at local level. I think that's the point you're making. Some more comments about big issues in the city?
I think, a big issue. I think the city underwent quite a remarkable urban renaissance in the 1990s, and you can see it out there in the city centre. I think bits of it are looking a bit tired now in terms of the public realm, but it is a big city, and it has about 70 local centres as well. And I think that the local centres haven't fared as well. their offer in terms of shops and leisure uses, and even like living over the shop, it isn't great. And I think the City Council has tried, for example, with Sutton Coldfield, which is the biggest local centre outside of the city centre. There was a regeneration framework that was adopted in 2009, and that became a supplementary planning document with a great vision for the regeneration of Sutton Town Centre. But none of the objectives within it have been implemented.
Right. Okay.
So I think in terms of the scale of the city, it's difficult to concentrate on the city centre and all of the local centres that cover a big geographical area.
Okay.
And I think they're increasingly poor in terms of their offer and not offering, not exploiting really the potential to create jobs and investment. In
Okay,
the
lots of people nodding to that, so I'm getting the kind of sense that lots of people share that view about what is the plans for the outlying areas as opposed to just the city centre, and previous commitments not been updated or delivered on. Okay, I've got that point, thank you. Some other points, so there was Michael at the back.
Two things. The administrations of both sides of the Bristol line seem to overly rely upon great corporations like Serco, Capita, and so on, and enter into contracts which, quite frankly, from a business point of view, you're insane to sign them. And one of the comments I've heard was, oh well, we use the city solicitors, but they turn up with 25 lawyers on £100 an hour, and we're out-lawyered. I mean, if you look at the cost, Service Birmingham charge the city for answering a telephone or passing a message, and they're in the swankiest offices in town, their contract is so tight, we can't live without it.
Okay. Yeah, that point. So big issue about the relationship with the private sector and whether Birmingham residents think you've got a good deal out of these. That's
well, if you look at the refuse contract coming to an end in 2009, Service Birmingham and the Capita contracts, there isn't a single one of those that you can look at, if you look at it from a business point of view, and say, that is good value for the citizens of Birmingham. Not one of them.
Okay, thanks for that. Got that. Some more comments. I'll come down this way and then go back up that way, okay? Just a one here.
Yeah, the city's finances, the main basis of what every city can do. The biggest budget of any local authority, and it's the biggest one in Europe.
Yep.
Yet the overall budget is over £1 billion. People don't realise the size and enormity of that. The commercial values, though, I don't think that the city appreciate or get their head round, and they don't seem to do very good commercially when they go to do these sort of contracts.
Okay.
Having worked on Service Birmingham, the PFI with Highways and AME, and worked in finance for 35 years, I know exactly how these contracts are so watertight that we've been bound over, basically.
Yeah.
I believe that the people of Birmingham should be aware and made aware of this.
Okay, so I'm just taking a sort of, I don't want to generalise your point because we have captured your specific, but I'm getting the sense that people understand the scale of the challenge in terms of the budget cuts, and what you're saying to me is Birmingham getting the right deal and the best deal for residents in terms of the challenges you face. I don't want to paraphrase, but I think that's the kind of theme we've picked up there. Okay, let me move on to some other points. I think the gentleman near the stripe top, were you indicating, sir? No? You?
No, not me.
Not you, okay.
Okay. Mine is a more general point as a resident of Birmingham, in that it's very difficult to actually get around on public transport in Birmingham. If you want to get from one side of the city to the next, it seems you have to come into town and then back out the other side. There's no crisscrossing of the transport system, and it's not coordinated nor connected. Birmingham is the second city, but yet still after 12 o'clock you find it very difficult to get public transport wherever you are.
Nods around the room on that. Transport a big issue here in this city.
Even the other end of the day you can have problems as well.
Right, okay, thanks. Got that point. Let me just take some more comments and we can come round again. I don't know how long you want to do this. Give me a shout, keep going.
You're doing a good job, carry on.
We haven't rehearsed this. So I'll keep coming this way and then I'm coming to this side next. Okay, gentlemen here?
Yeah, I mean, the issues that I was hoping to hear about and I thought people would talk about is what Lord Adonis said 3.5 years ago, and I think the political leadership here really fighting for trying to raise difficult issues. I think one of the things he was expecting from Birmingham, or what he really wanted, was radical transformation.
Okay.
So I've come here tonight to hear about what are your ideas for radical transformation, and he highlighted 3 key things. A directly elected mayor to address the issues like the ones that are being raised tonight. He's talking about HS2, because at the moment New Street is like a branch line, not a direct line from London to the other major cities. He talked about academies, but I think that's been sidetracked by what's happened in recent months. And he also questioned, why does a city like Birmingham need 120 councillors when we've got 100 senators in America?
And what do you think about his questions that he raised then?
Well, as a former school governor, I totally agree with him about poor school performance. I totally agree with him that Birmingham does need radical transformation. I've read the PowerPoint presentation that you've done where you picked on Lakewood constituency and you said, well, it's the same size as Cambridge. Yeah. Well, how is Cambridge? It's an expanding city, and we're a city that's gone through the post-industrial phase, and we're struggling for disadvantaged communities.
So what would you like to see being done there?
Well,
what's the radical transformation you'd look for in this city?
Structural change in governance.
Okay.
Because I think it's not deliberate.
Okay, that's my point. Okay, I'm going to come to this side of the room now because they've waited patiently. I'll start and work backwards. Is that okay? Back of the room, I'll get to you. Start here.
I think all the points raised so far are very legitimate, but I think if we're talking about the really big challenges facing the city, I'd like us to start with talking about the incredibly high levels of poverty in the city, particularly children living in poverty, and also the disproportionately high levels of unemployment. And obviously this won't be news to anybody carrying out this review, but I do think it needs to be reflected in how we talk about the governance of the City Council, and how the council might need extra support, whether that comes from partner communities and local government or other agencies. Yep. I don't think we can overlook those kind of demographic and economic factors. I'm not saying Birmingham is entirely unique in that respect, but we are extremely challenged.
It does have a particular challenge here in terms of your levels of unemployment in this city compared to national average, almost double national average. So it is a big challenge. Thank you for that point.
I think,
I'll just go back from you and then back, and then we'll regroup. Okay.
And I think during the Olympics, because we own the NEC and stuff, they did a contract to do like food stands, and they missed the contract and stuff. I just find it quite weird that Birmingham City Council would hold on to something that sells food and water, as opposed to sell it to give capital.
Well, they're selling it in the metal.
Okay, so this is about disposing.
But I don't understand why they did that in the first place.
Right, okay. Again,
I don't understand why a council's job is to sell Coca-Cola at the back of Olympic Park when you've got the Olympics on. Okay. Surely it should be about people in Birmingham.
Okay, so something about prioritising what Birmingham Council are doing. We might come to that later on in the day.
No, hang on.
Hold on, I'll get to you later, sir. Let me just walk down. I'll come back to you. Thank you. Okay, well, I'll get to you 1 second. Hold on. This gentleman here has been waiting.
Well, I'm not actually a Brummie, I'm a Londoner.
Oh, gosh.
And I've lived
let you in.
Well, I've lived here for 25 years, and one of the things I think is the problem with Birmingham, it's too large. It should be remodelled like London, with London boroughs and a central authority that used to, it's got the Greater London Authority now, used to have Greater London Council, but Mrs Thatcher got rid of that. The problem is it's got too many chiefs and not enough Indians. The council is too large, it should be split up like London boroughs, which could be based on the districts, so a district could become the equivalent of a London borough, with its own town hall and its own staff, but able to collect its own rates locally, but just pay a percentage to the Greater London, the Greater Birmingham Authority, which will sit in half of the council house, and they could turn the other half into a hotel.
Okay, we might come back to that point. I hear you. Hold that point for a second. Let me get some of the comments in the room, and we can come back to some of these points at the end. So, was there anybody on these rows? No? No? Right, this lady here.
Oh, can I say something about Sutton Coldfield?
Know it well.
Oh, right. Okay. Ken Rushton was going to you this evening, and I think he would have spoken about the ideas and ideals we have for generating a Sutton Town Council. where we have a lot of control over what we do in Sutton Coldfield. And I think that lots of residents of Sutton Coldfield are very worried about what's happening. Lots of our precious buildings being sold off for redevelopment, presumably to help with the Birmingham debt. The centre of Sutton Coldfield, which has been alluded to already, looking like, I don't know.
It's looking a bit shabby,
It's looking
isn't it?
awful.
It is looking a bit shabby, I
Absolutely
agree.
dreadful. And nothing seems to be happening. There was a plan to regenerate. Nothing's happening with that. There's a plan to, which has been agreed to by the city, to have high-rise flats for elderly people on a place called Brassington Avenue, which is a bit of a derelict area, but we feel that could be a bus interchange, a public transport interchange, and that would leave the rest of Sutton Coldfield, when money was available, to actually
So to just
regenerate.
take that point again, so I think the point is the point that was made earlier. There's something here about Sutton Coldfield as an area is wanting to petition for,
we have petitioned already,
you have
so
already
we
to become a town council, I think it is.
Yes.
And there's something about having your own ability to do your own regeneration plans and some commitment around the future for your centre. I've got
And planning powers.
Yeah, I've got that
The
point.
planning committee's recently granted permission for 5 tower blocks on Brassington Avenue, up to 17 stories high, 300 metres from Sutton Park, 2,400 acre. You'll probably know Sutton Park well.
Yeah, I do.
And so, unfortunately, now when you're in Sutton Park, you'll see tower blocks on the horizon, whereas before you had the illusion of a wilderness going to the horizon. So it's kind of a remote planning committee, and the question is really, do the members of the planning committee know Sutton Coldfield? Have they been there?
Okay, got that point. Okay, let me move on a bit. Sorry, I've got that point from places have their own destiny. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Can I come back on the point that why should Birmingham be doing this? When I was a kid, Birmingham did everything.
You did.
Until bus deregulation, which was 1986 when I was in my 30s, I didn't have a car. I used the bus every day. I had a work journey which involved 3 buses and a train at one point. Every day it worked in 7 years, except one, when it was so cold that the diesel waxed in the bus fuel tanks, even though they had the heaters on in the garage. Every other day I had a bus and it got me there. When I was a kid, I was actually brought up in Sutton Coldfield, and so I have quite a lot of affection. I remember the old borough council, and independence has a nice warm feeling for me. But I can remember my father dragging me to meetings, because we were fairly political back in the 60s, early 70s, when Sutton was still independent, over whether Sutton should go into Birmingham or not. And no one in Sutton wanted to go into Birmingham, but there was always one argument the other way. Every time that we had these discussions, everyone said, if we went into Birmingham, we'd get Birmingham buses. And they were wonderful. Well, 30 years ago, the modal split of transport to the city centre was the biggest mode was bus. People came in on the bus, they went out on the bus. There was even the posh bus, number 10, where the ladies at lunch from Edgbaston used to come in.
So learning those lessons from those great days in the 60s, what would you say now?
Birmingham then did public service, it did everything. And that's part of what, as a historian, I was taught to call the myth of the place. In other words, it's the collective identity of Birmingham. The Elam Valley reservoirs. I can remember being taken by my father in a coach trip to a car trip. I was to see them when I was a kid. All that kind of thing. All that was what made Birmingham.
Great.
The gas, the water, the electricity,
the old chain,
the buses. And Birmingham is now like a city that's lost an empire and failed to find its role, because that was its role. And that's what you need to consider when you're looking at the mad rush for outsourcing on both sides of the political spectrum at the moment, whether it's Lord Whitby producing Serco, or whether it's Albert Hall sending off the NEC and everything else he can lay his hands on. It goes straight against what the tradition of Birmingham was. Okay. So the question is not, no, why should Birmingham be doing this? It's why the heck can't we do it again when we once did it so extremely well?
Okay, thank you for that. Again, this lady next to you.
Yes, my concern, regarding the small business, Birmingham, small and micro businesses are the bedrock of the city. And yet there are large contracts coming in, and there is no guarantee of some of the small businesses having access to any of that resources. First of all, they don't normally have the capacity to actually make a bid, so they can't share that. And secondly, many of the large companies will just provide support for their their friends. And so basically, these small businesses are not getting lucky, they're not part of anything.
Okay.
And the second thing, just going on to what that gentleman said, is that Birmingham has the youngest city in Europe. And unless we really start looking at employing our young people, we have a very high percentage of that, and building the skills, we are going to be left behind as a city.
Thank you very much for that. I think there was, yes, gentleman behind you.
I've come with a dual purpose. First purpose is to reinforce that the people of Birmingham voted overwhelmingly against wanting an elected mayor. And I think that the panel should give consideration to the people's choice when you come to do the deliberations. And secondly, I know that the Right Honourable Lord Rooker is one of those that is in favour of breaking up Birmingham into at least 3 borough councils. Me and Jeff go back a long way. And I am 100% against that. Okay. Birmingham is a city, everyone, or most people in this room, are proud to call themselves Brummies. And to try and compare the London borough system with Birmingham would be totally wrong. That's not to say that we should not be devolving a lot more of the council services to districts to manage. I'm 100% in favour of that. In point of fact, I can go back to 1985, discussing it with former leaders of the council. One notable friend of ours, Dick Knowles, because that is the way that we should be looking, to localise the management of the services, but keeping control at the centre.
Okay,
Birmingham is a great city.
Thank you very much for that. I am conscious, Bob, that I've done I know before they drag me off. Thank you all very much for the opening salvo, which was around the ambition and scale of challenge of the city. I'm going to hand over now to the next speaker. I'm sure your point will be picked up there. Thank you for that opening session.
Okay, thank you for that, Joanne. We're now move on to Howard, who's going to actually pick up where you left off about districts, wards, devolution, communities in Birmingham, the issues there.
So we've heard what you've said so far about that, so the particular focus hopefully can attempt to direct, but I'm sure you'll get your other questions in about this, is about sort of communities and communities issues, or residents' priorities if you like, and sort of how you rate the council for doing that. So that's the broad area I've been asked to do my little bit on here tonight, but I'm sure we'll pick up on and carry on some of the themes that have already developed. So on that, communities' priorities, residents' priorities, and then how the council deals with those, or doesn't, maybe, is something you might want to say about. So who'd like to set off first? The lady, you put your hand up from the other session, didn't you? So I'll go up this side and down that side, if that's all right.
It's hard to know where to begin. First of all, I'd like to say, as an active and politically aware, from many perspectives, person in the city, it feels very bizarre to have a lot of people coming and probing and reviewing and commissioning and putting a spotlight on this. Well, great, thank you, thanks for coming, because what we need is fairness and help, not to be actually pilloried and scapegoated in the media. I'm very concerned about that aspect. Secondly, for me, the priority as a mother in this city, and as a woman who lived locally and brought children from my own, and I know the difficulties, we need our children to be safe. That for me, if we have a city where our children are not safe, I don't care how prosperous it is. I don't care about the glamorisation of the city centre at the expense of places like Shoreditch, where my father actually lives. So we are a divided city. What was that book by Dickens? Tale of Two Cities. Yeah. So for some people it's a great city. People with nice jobs are coming in, commuting. Yes, it may be difficult. I like Sutton Coldfield and I like Sutton Park. But you know, there are many kids in this city who can't get over to that part of the city because of poverty. So we've got a very big proportion of young people. We are the youngest city, high youth unemployment, lack of skills. I want someone to address the core problems, not just come in and say, you're doing a rubbish job, Birmingham City Council, and by the way, we're cutting all your resources, because then how can they perform? Yes, there has been wastage in the public sector, we know all that, and I'm not talking on behalf of any political party, unlike some people in the room.
I'm saying it as someone who cares on a humanitarian level. How can we hold our heads up at government level, sending commissioners in, berating the council's performance, and I'm highly critical of it because that's my job, but I'm also very passionate about this city. We have a job to do. Let's help, but child protection has to be a priority.
Okay, children, safety. I'll just deal with the issue that we're not here to...
No,
I know what it's like being in the goldfish bowl. I've witnessed it myself in my own authority when we had the riots in 2001.
It's good to have,
it's good to have critical friends who come and examine you. I'm certainly not involved in this review to come and be a clever dick and tell you what to do. We're in listening mode, and we're here to listen to what you say, and then we'll write our report and do our conclusions. That's my involvement, and that's the pledge I can give you on behalf of the three of us here and other colleagues that are doing work elsewhere. So safety of children, very clear and articulate. Thank you. We'll go back that way. Gentleman there.
Yeah, just a very quick one coming back on the point.
I'm keen to hear from people who haven't yet made a contribution.
It's just a quick one on green waste, and just coming back on a couple of points that were made earlier. We're never going to get a consensus on this issue. If you ask people in this room, you get at least 50 different views. But just to sort of respond to a couple of the points that were made earlier. So yes, there is an additional cost now if you want your green waste collected. But I think you have to look at that in the context of the fact that we didn't have our council tax has been frozen for 3-4 years. I think this year was the first year we've had a rise. So as council taxpayers, we can't have it all ways. You can't have council tax freezes every year and then expect your services to either be sort of continuing or improve. What I think went wrong with the green waste side of things, from my own personal perspective, was just a massive failure in the way they dealt with it, the way that they communicated it. If that had been done properly, I think people could have been,
So again, I'm not going to put words in like whatever, so it isn't necessarily the issue itself, it's the way the issue was dealt with and the way you felt treated
that
as
for
a
me,
citizen.
the comms and everything tied into government.
Yes, lady there.
I lived in Birmingham for 54 of my 60 years. I never thought it was a great city. I wouldn't say I was very proud to be from it, because most people outside Birmingham view Birmingham as they cringe, they go on about their accent, which is relevant, but also I feel ashamed when I read the report of the census of 2011 about, as the lady at the front said, about the poverty, the amount of unemployment in the city. It makes me ashamed to be from Birmingham or Brummie, because I never use that term. Because we try to be all things to all men, instead of saying this is the right way to be. We need to protect our children, we need to give them education, give them a good home life so that they can have good food, good housing. The people have central heating in a house. I mean, it may not be the most important thing, but if you're living in a damp, already disgusting home, and you have carbon heating on, because A, you can't afford it, you haven't even got it, I just find it absolutely appalling that, we are in the 21st century, and we're still talking about children in this way. I just can't believe it.
Okay, so that's a strong message about children and also...
But I was born from Spark Hill, and I'd hope by the time we come to the 21st century that the people of Spark Hill would be in a better place, that people wouldn't be looking down on them because they live in this place that's full of people who don't fit in with the rest of us. Because that's where I was when I was growing up. I think what we need to do is to be right about what we're doing. Who gives us stuff about the green waste? I can't believe that it's been brought up so many times. Well, if anybody looked at the census report, you would not believe that we're talking about green waste. I am absolutely incensed about it. We can't, as that man said, we can't keep having services provided if we don't pay more council tax. And I agree that probably people here who live in better areas will say that why should we be giving it to people who haven't lived in this country for quite a number of years. I mean, there are a vast number of people who live in this city who haven't lived in this city for 10 years even. So their contribution isn't as great as, say, mine, because I've lived here for 54 years. But at the same time, do I want to live in a city that allows people to have poor education because they don't come from here, they don't have proper housing, they're overcrowded? It's just disgusting. We should be talking about that. And I agree that the transport system in this country, in Birmingham, was great. I use the bus all the time. I don't use the bus anymore, not because unacceptable. It's acceptable because we've allowed every single thing that is great about this city to become diluted by trying to be all things to all men.
So, concentrate, children, life chances, tackle unemployment.
Well, you know, about for everybody, but for pensioners as well, you know, so that everybody, you know, people who live in Sutton Coldfield feel as valued as people who live in Mitchells, or they think that they don't realise value because people in Mitchells, well, they're not really from here, are they?
Okay, hear what you said. Lady at the back, very patient.
Yeah, I set up a residents' neighbourhood forum because of the inequality really between some of the wards that are around. So more middle class wards, no names mentioned, but Bourneville, is different, has different problems to where I live, which is Bramwood. We have many more social housing, we have many more people that aren't from different countries that don't feel part of society anymore. They lack a voice, and you find that the poorer wards and poorer areas don't have friends of the park. They don't have people voicing for them, so they're left to the squalor, if I may say that. The other side of the coin of the people that come to my meetings are people who are not in social housing, but are still very poor, who don't get the help from the city council. They don't have that structure. So on the one hand, you've got social tenants who get some help, and then you've got others who are homeowners who don't know about the help. So there's a lot of people who don't understand the system, and therefore the city council, you know, they go through the net. You have councillors, but they don't deal with everyone, do they?
Okay, so some clarity around system in terms of what people are entitled to, and also some clarity about quiet voices as opposed to loud voices.
Yeah, loud voices seem to get heard, and I think there is a definite, you know, it's been on the television, it's them and us, isn't it? Oh, it's their fault, they get help, you know, they don't help themselves. So the whole benefit thing is full of sour taste for a lot of people.
Okay, I've said I've come over to the gentleman at the back there.
Can I start by saying that somebody who was Aston born and bred, who's been 67 years in the city, I think it's a fabulous city. And anybody who tries it can see the outside later. As far as the council is concerned, the problem I have is that they micromanage. They look at one sector and don't look at the impact it has on other things. For example, they will cut the funding for ring and ride for the elderly and the disabled, without realising that that then leads to isolation, poverty, illness, and guess what? They end up in care homes, costing the council costing us £500, £600, £700 a week, because they're not able to get out, do a bit of shopping and do what they want to do. And it's not just that, there are examples all the way down the council where they micromanage and not look at the impact on what's going on either side of the decision they make. Okay. And that's a big issue.
Micromanage and then also make decisions in silos that don't look at things
yeah,
across the piece.
They're looking at a microscope.
A very narrow thing. Right, fine, got it, thank you. Come forward. Yes, gentleman there.
Yeah, leading on from that, you know, but there are issues about how Birmingham spends its money and how it commissions activities. For having worked for a number of councils and across councils for the last 40 odd years, it's not the only council that does that. Small community groups lost out when we went from a grant economy to a commissioning economy because they didn't have the economies of scale to do all those again. They got rid of staff at that period of time. They started commissioning activity, and the small community groups lost out. The type of groups that used to get £5,000–6,000 grants to run luncheon clubs just disappeared. I know at least 10 across this city that disappeared. That's not the city's fault. That's the fault of rules that made them go down that route and made them go for bigger contracts and stuff like that. And it comes back down to, you know, they lost out. In cases in Birmingham, We may have lost out more because it is a bigger city, and there were hundreds of groups that were hundreds of voluntary sector groups that were receiving funding from the council that started in decline, which therefore you go back to volunteers coming in. So some of it is not the fault of the council, and I think we need to be careful that we have to look at, you know, let Birmingham be Birmingham, but it can't do everything. It's not Birmingham's fault that some shops are empty in some of the high streets somewhere, because that means people aren't spending money in them. Northfield High Street was one that I worked out there 5 or 6 years ago and stuff like that. And the buses aren't Birmingham's responsibility anymore. We may decry that. I go to London, I've got an Oyster car because it's the easiest way to get around. We can't have them in the Midlands because we're not a regulated transport area anymore. And that's not Birmingham's fault either. So I think if we're going to do something, we need to focus on what Birmingham should be doing and what it can do. And one last thing on council tax. I, as a person with a very small garden, don't want to see for rich people in big gardens to have their waste taken away when I paid for a wheelie bin and I filled it 3 times throughout the year and they filled it 10 times. I shouldn't be subsidising people in big houses with big gardens.
Okay, so key message. There's a wheelie bin message there. And what the other bit is, and I don't want to lose this because you don't hear it very often, not everything is the council's fault.
Yeah.
Okay.
Most of it is.